Welcome back to Cal Park Bros. Jason and I are fresh off the Chicago Twisted Metal segment. Jason, that's probably the most I wanted to play video games after mentioning NASCAR and Twisted Metal. You remember that game?
I do.
Yeah.
Very underrated.
Yep. Um, I'd even be okay with Burnout. It's a fun game.
Nah. Twisted Metal. We're good.
In the second segment, we're going to be talking about the fact that finally Jason and I got on the same page. Not about what the hell we're doing with this show,
No,
but
no. Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't put that on me.
he couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. I knew there was going to be a Talladega Nights reference tonight. Uh, we finally decided, hey, we should actually try and watch the same movie or show within a reasonable amount of time, and then actually talk about it on the show. And so I I made the decision to set aside a couple of hours. Finally watched Thor: Love and Thunder. I was only like a week and a half after Jason, by the way, so I don't know why he's so impatient. Um, Clearly, everybody was talking about this damn movie. But yeah,
Except you,
I
because you
really
didn't see
enjoyed
it.
it. I really enjoyed it. Um, and it's okay to enjoy something that just came out, but also not say it's the greatest Thor movie ever. I mean, if you feel that way, that's fine. Um, but I feel like a lot of times people just can't stop themselves from being a prisoner of the moment. And as soon as the latest sequel to a series comes out, it's like, oh, it's the best ever. I'm like, there are a lot of redeeming qualities about this movie, Jason. Um, but I feel like a lot of times, reflexively, people just say, oh, well, since it was the last and everyone's got recency bias, um, they just can't stop themselves from saying, oh, it's the best. Now, if people feel that it's the best, that's fine. Like I think if someone told me they saw all four Thor movies and they felt that Love and Thunder was the best to them, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I think it definitely holds up. I don't think it's objectively worse than Ragnarok. I personally think the first Thor was a great movie.
Was it the greatest Thor movie?
I wouldn't say it's the greatest. I mean, a lot has happened in the Thor, sort of storyline. And if somebody said, okay, Ragnarok's their favorite, I'm like, okay, that I can even make peace with that. And if someone said the first Thor was their favorite, I'm cool with that too. Because Kenneth Branagh did a great job with the first Thor, really getting people to understand, hey, here's why all these uh all this Norse mythology, right? And why these gods are the way that they are and why they talk the way that they do. Um, and it speaks to really why Thor is the way he is and why he clearly was not going to become who he needed to be unless he gets kind of brought down to earth, figuratively and literally speaking. And so that's why I've already always appreciated the first Thor movie. Um, the Dark World just never did anything for me. Like the Dark World is more useless as a multiverse vehicle than Iron Man 2. And that's saying a lot. A lot.
That's a topic for a whole different segment. Most useless MCU movies. But yeah, I agree with you. I've never met anybody or seen anybody say The Dark World was the best Thor movie. I think any ranking that comes out by anybody, expert or fan or otherwise, The Dark World definitely is your fourth of the four for sure. Now, personally, when I saw this movie, I wanted to go into it without seeing any reviews of it, any opinions of it, either fan or otherwise. Unfortunately, in the day of social media, that didn't happen, of course. And like the narrative you just said, was one thing I saw was Love and Thunder, the greatest Thor movie of all time. So unfortunately, with that in my head, I went into this movie watching it like, okay, wow me, make me believe this is the greatest Thor movie of all time. Now, obviously, I saw the movie, but even hindsight being 50-50, even if it even if I was to say it was or wasn't, the first two Thor movies weren't really that much to overcome in the first place to be the greatest. I mean, because frankly, Ragnarok is my favorite even after seeing Love and Thunder. But I will say this: when it comes to Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, I kind of sort of had the same mindset going into like, what's really the point of this movie? Like, why do we need to see another Thor movie? Right now, in some regards, I still think that about Ragnarok. Not so much about Love and Thunder. Some of that might be recency stuff, like you just mentioned, because you can see several signs of things for the future, not necessarily just for Thor, but for Marvel, which we folks might talk about that next week. Hashtag Phase 5, hashtag Phase 6.
Take that, take that.
You said that before, and I have no clue what that's in reference to. We'll talk about that off air. But
Oh,
okay, Terrence is saying wow, so I'm guessing it's something I should be aware of. Hopefully, I don't. Hopefully, it's not something I'm losing my black card over, but we'll see. But by his laughter, I'm guessing it is. We'll talk about that off air again. But so again, I'm not going to say this is the greatest Thor movie of all time. I do think it was a good movie, shockingly. The only thing that really kind of disappointed me in it is that we didn't see as much of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters in it, because the way Endgame ended and the way the trailers for this movie kind of played out, you would think there would be more of them in there, but it really wasn't. But definitely, it's a lead in to the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which is going to be part of again Phase 5. So, but yeah, this is a really good movie. I thought good action, comedy left a little bit to the imagination, in my opinion. A lot of people had the opinion of that Gore in this movie, played by Christian Bale, might have been, if not the best Marvel villain portrayal, but one of. And so I had me going back and thinking, okay, all the MCU villains. I'll give my opinion on that, but I want to hear what you think about not only Bale's performance as Gore, but what I just said, Gore's ranking or status when it comes to MCU villains and where he might fall in line with them.
I think you know the, I'm not ready to. I'm not emotionally ready to debate all the other Marvel villains. I think Christian Bale's um, dog is Christian Bale. Someone with his resume, great actor, and he was, I like the way his character was set up, where basically he walks in, basically begging the gods to help him out, and then the gods basically say, "Listen, you're here for our amusement. You're lucky we didn't kill you on the spot." And then he gets that sword. He that basically, and spoiler alert, we about to talk about some damn spoilers here. So if you haven't seen Thor, tough potatoes.
Hey, it's been a week. If you haven't seen it in a week, too bad. So, I mean, it's been more than a week, but that's my rule. If it's been a week since the movie came out and you haven't seen it, if you hear any spoilers, that's your fault. So
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah, you're kind of cruising for a bruising here if you haven't seen the movie. But what I thought was really neat about Gore's progression as a character is like, listen, this guy was like desperate for the intervention of the gods, and they're literally playing in his face, and then he gets this sword, and he effectively calls them out for not intervening, um, for basically being charlatans, for being frauds, and ironically, that was some of the same stuff that Odin was saying about Thor. Like dog, you got all this talent, all of this, this high authority in Asgard, and you out here bullshitting. And so that's just something I felt like I picked up on, and that's why I think I enjoyed the character. Like, even though clearly, this dude was corrupted by this sword, some of what he was trying to say about the gods was true, which is they were not doing right by a lot of people. Um, and that's about as deep as you can get in a damn Marvel movie. I mean, that's what I loved about it. You know, I loved that character. I loved the not only did I love the comedic bits, you know, having the Rock dude as doing the narration, like that works. Okay, that fucking works. Keep doing that because that shit was amazing. And we could do a whole show on how Marvel has kind of used narration by other people who aren't the main characters in their Marvel movies and how they've literally made the narration like a character in of itself. Because you've seen this in the Ant-Man series, for example. You've seen it in the Thor series with Ragnarok and now Love and Thunder. And it's almost like an unsung hero in these movies, and it definitely works very, very well in the Thor universe. Um, but yeah, I love Gore as a character, but what I really, really loved is that we get to see Jane. That's what makes the heart of this movie work. Is that Jane's back and they explain where the hell she's been all these years. And we kind of see how the relationship with her and Thor unraveled. And you know, as someone who as someone who's dealt with relationship strife the last year, I was like, oh my God, you are speaking to me right now. Because I felt like, oh, so that's why that shit blew up.
Yeah, I was kind of nervous a little bit. I mean, which I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. The title of the movie was Love and Thunder, but it definitely kind of felt like, I don't want to say a full blown chick flick, but it kind of went down the lines of being like a romance movie in a way, which it did in a way, because a lot of the storyline was, I mean, again, the title of the movie is Love and Thunder, so you couldn't really be shocked by that. But a lot of this, half the storyline was almost like you just said, what happened with Thor and Jane, them coming back together after not seeing each other forever. And obviously now find out that she has cancer, stage 4, by the way. And you mentioned how also too with Gore, the sword kind of took him over. Pretty much the hammer, whose name I still can't always pronounce, but the Thor's hammer did the same thing for her, took her over. And in fact, they even stated at one point that her body wasn't able to fight the cancer because of the hammer. So it's kind of weird how she sought the hammer to kind of try to be strong, and it worked. Obviously, she was, you know, the female Thor, but it was also kind of killing her in a way as well.
The Mighty Thor,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, but it was very cool to see that. I mean, obviously, if you saw the trailer, you knew that was going to be a thing, but still to kind of see her as a strong Thor, I thought it was pretty cool. Not Thor. Chris Hemsworth Thor isn't the only one out there, and so I thought it was pretty cool too. Um, Now, obviously, her death though was kind of a surprise to me, because at the end, whenever, you know, clearly Thor and Jane had defeated Gore, and he had the chance to make a wish, the way they kind of played it out, I really thought he was going to make the wish to cure Jane's cancer, because the way he was kind of looking back in tears, like I could bring back my daughter, but he was looking back in tears, like with as Thor was holding Jane. I swear I thought he was going to make a wish to save Jane and cure her cancer. But no, obviously she went away in the gold dust or whatnot. And then Gore's daughter came back and they said, take care of my daughter. He would, don't worry, he will. You know. But I thought that was really sad. Like they're gonna end Jane's character like that. Which, as we know from one of the two post-credit scenes or in-credit scenes, yes, she made it to Valhalla, which I thought was one of the coolest things ever. That here she is a scientist who gained the powers of Thor, and she's the one that made it to Valhalla. I'm like, oh, that's pretty, excuse the language, pretty effing cool. You know, I was ready to say the actual word, so that's why I said excuse my language. So I dialed it back for you, Terrence. See, that's how you actually do it, sir. But that was pretty cool. One of the end scenes. So that I think that was like the first end credit scene. If I recall, I could be wrong with that. But basically, that leads me to what the Idris Elba's character said. Hey, welcome to Valhalla. It may seem like there's certain plans for her in Valhalla that might lead towards what's going to happen in phase 5 and 6. So it's like, oh, so we're not done with Jane. Okay, all right. But then the second end credit scene, if I remember it correctly, you mentioned Zeus, his character was in there, played by Russell Crowe. And whenever I saw Zeus, in my head, back in my head, I'm thinking, are we going to see Hercules in this movie at some point? And that's what it was about. Because during the movie, Thor and the group basically, made Zeus look like an idiot. I don't want to say they defeated him, but they hurt him. They embarrassed him. So the second end credit scene was like Zeus was saying to Hercules, get vengeance for me. You must kill Thor. I'm like, and then they show Hercules. I'm like, there we go. And somewhere in the mix of all those end credit scenes, they said Thor was going to return, like in the credits. I'm like, now it didn't say it was going to be another Thor movie, but obviously he's going to return. Which again, I have a speculation about where he's going to return. But again, save that conversation for when we talk about phase 5 and 6. So overall, I thought the movie was really good. If I had to give it my 1 to 10 Cowboy Bro rating, 10 being the best, I'd give it an 8, maybe 8.5. So it was really good.
Yeah,
definitely not the worst Thor movie, not the worst Marvel movie, but still it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'll let you talk about the ending, but what else you got to say, sir?
Oh, I was just gonna say I had no problem with the amount of time that the Guardians of the Galaxy were in this movie.
Well, I'm not saying you or anybody else have a problem, but I just, as someone who actually liked the characters and liked the movies that they had, the first one more than the second one, like I was saying, the way they played the trailers out, and obviously the way Endgame ended, obviously you knew at some point there was going to be like a mashup somewhere between Thor and the Guardians. And again, with the way the trailers came out, you're like, okay, this movie's going to have a little bit more of the Guardians of the Galaxy in there because it's going to lead to their third movie, which again, with all the news that's come out in the last 2 weeks since the movie's come out, we already knew there was going to be a Guardians 3 movie. I thought it was going to be part of phase 4. Apparently it's not, but it's coming, folks. So spoiler alert for next week when we talk about 5 and 6 phases. FYI.
You might as well be talking about Leonard Part 6. Nobody knows what the hell you're talking about.
Well, the problem with Leonard Part 6 was there wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So
that was the joke. And that's probably the one thing related to Bill Cosby we can still joke about, sadly.
Well.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah. But folks, basically there was an announcement that there's going to be a phase 5 and phase 6, and they talk about all the movies that are going to be part of those phases and the Disney Plus shows. So that's what came out this past weekend at Comic-Con. Blowing up the whole Marvel fan universe, along with one emotional trailer of a movie that's going to be part of phase 4, coming out in November. Hashtag Wakanda Forever. Terrence, you told me to do the thing, bro. You got to do it with me.
No, no.
See, this is why I question why I do a show with you. You can't do one simple thing. The Wakanda Forever sign, sir. Do it one time. Come on.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough Wakanda entertainment television for one episode. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about Mookie Betts at the All-Star Game on Cowboy Bros.